Hi, this is a series called What Matters, and it's about finding the gist, the questions that one can take away, one can ponder over regarding the developments that happen all around us. Essentially, it's for my own consumption and find out or reflect back upon later as to what the initial thoughts and opinions were, what the questions were, and if at all I would be able to find answers later on. If somebody finds these useful, well and good. The intent behind this is to stay clear of the predisposed agendas of the news outlets and people and their opinions by referring directly to the publicly available material on websites, as in this case, and obviously the press releases, the reports, the uh, articles from the people itself, from the departments itself themselves, are of sorry key importance. They should be referred to, and they're the best source of sifting through what's being said between the lines. But in the rush of the hour, in the rush of today's life and lifestyle, we tend to, or have gotten used to, have been made used to listening to a lot of news and reading endless reams of newspapers. Well, that's one way to go about it. Nothing to take away from that, but it has almost come to a point where one has to put certain filters because of the bias that is quite blatant in today's reportage, essentially. So this would be an attempt, or this is just an attempt to highlight these main takeaways, main key words which have been said, sentences, remarks, verbatim, and then try and read between the lines, if one may, and more importantly, pose questions instead of answering uh, opinions of one's own. The main intent is to pose question that what matters within these press releases, within these reports, within these endless literature that is spewed out day in and out by various departments, companies, people, researchers, and so on. So let's try and make some use of from this. Make our own perspectives, make our own opinions, think about them, and hopefully, hopefully, reflect or get to reflect at a later date by watching this video log and think about what, let's say, I was thinking at this point in time initially, what my questions are, and then later on, are there any answers to those questions? Uh, have there been any new developments in light of which the whole matter has changed, and so on? So I'll keep attempting with this narrow or brief intro to this series every time, so that I remind myself as to what this purpose really is. For today's video log, this is regarding this big news which came in last week. Apparently, the Binance fiasco, whereas, and I'll quote this from the press releases from the Department of Justice website, Office of Public Affairs, uh, press releases and statements from all the individuals who participated. It was the Attorney General, it is the Treasury Secretary, and Deputy Attorney General, and so on. So first and foremost, Binance and CEO plead guilty to federal charges in $4 billion resolution. Something about that as a statement or as a caption to a press release on a government website sounds a bit boastful than neutral, which it should be. And if it is a bit self-boasting, your press release puts me in a position where my radars are up, because now I'm going to be a bit cautious. Anyway, let's begin. So Binance and CEO plead guilty to federal charges in $4 billion resolution. Great news for common man that any such, whenever the government agencies are able to nab something that's possibly wrong going on. Binance admits to be engaged in anti-money laundering and unlicensed money transmission and sanctions violations. Wow. So let's see how they got into this admission. I'm sure they would not have just walked into the door of Department of Justice and Treasury Secretaries, um, FinCEN or OFAC, personnel, and then would have said, okay, we admit to something wrong we've done. Nobody does it voluntarily. We've seen it all in the corporate scandals or misdemeanors. It has to be strategized by these government agencies and their personnel to nab or find a way to enough evidence to indict these corporate entities and person behind the individuals behind them. So, uh, largest, it obviously we all know that after FTX, Binance is probably the second largest, if not the largest cryptocurrency exchange. They have agreed to pay $4 billion to resolve Justice Department's investigation. Okay, so it's to resolve the department's investigation. So it almost sounds like it's a mix of a lot of fees and charges and penalties that have been levied on them. And I think I did read that later on that there was a breakup of these charges and fees which have been given. Apparently, of these $4 billion, 1.8 is actually the penalty. The rest is recovery of the from the profits that have been made of these wrongful transactions. Quite importantly, uh, what are the uh, acts under which under the preview of which these have been brought about is very key. It's IEEPA, which is International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which is a very wide ranging act which gives a lot of powers to US regulators. The other one is the Bank Secrecy Act, which sounds very simple, but I think, and I need to really go through it. I try to Google it, but it's quite comprehensive, and there are a lot of important aspects to these. So these are the two umbrella acts under which these um, indict, these individuals and the company itself has been indicted for the violations, and of course sanctions, which is OFAC, FinCEN network, purview, I believe. So the CEO, Changpeng Zhao, a Canadian national, has also pleaded guilty. And they boasted about the fact that it's a coordinated resolution brought about by Department of Treasury's FinCEN, OFAC, CFTC, in coordination with DoJ. Commendable job at that, I would say. I mean, if there's such a coordination between powerhouses, which we are as common people in public not been given many instances to derive too much confidence from the coordinated efforts, because clearly there have been lapses in the coordination because of which these things fall through and continue to prosper, of course, until such a resolution is brought about and success is achieved. But the fact that this has been given such a hue and cry goes about saying that it is not that commonly occurring, this coordination. But good, this is commendable again. Nothing to take away from that. Binance became the world's largest because of these cryptocurrency exchange, because of the crimes it committed. That's a very strong statement coming from Attorney General Merrick B. Garland. I'm sure they have evidence and proof of that. Uh, so next sentence it continues, and that the fact that DoJ, Justice Department, has successfully prosecuted the CEOs of two of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges in two separate criminal cases. They're talking about Sam Bankman-Fried and Binance CEO Changpeng Zhao, CZ for easy reference. I've seen that he's been referred to as CZ in a lot of instances. All right. Well, so the last sentence, I think this is the key. So using new technology to break the law does not make you a disruptor. It makes you a criminal. That's also that almost is like a messaging not just to the person indicted here. It's to the wider uh, diaspora of this crypto market, the participants, the players, and not just that. If you're talking about new technology to break the law does not make you a disruptor, you're actually referring and pointing to the whole tech disruption industry. That's interesting. It makes you a criminal. Well, if in this case, if tech has it sounds almost a bit of passive anger from these power holders because of the challenge to the hegemony that crypto has brought about. Is that the case? Now, that's first question to think about. If hmm, looks like, because such a wide-ranging statement, you could have said that the misuse of or breach of. Okay, so from the breach of Bank Secrecy Act and Economic Powers Act and sanctions violations, it has directly gone into disruption. Technology to break the law does not make you a disruptor but a criminal, or using new technology to break the law does not make you a disruptor. All right, so we will come to these questions because this sentence itself is posing a lot of questions as to if that's the case, then a lot of fingers are pointing backwards at the regulators themselves. That if that were the case, then what level of complicity would be at their doors to have allowed this for so long? So we'll circle back to this particular question because at the moment they said technology to break the law. If you've not Really, if it's a new technology and there's no rule around it, how does an innovator in today's day, let's say it's a bona fide innovator, how do they go about safeguarding themselves? So that's a question for those innovators working in day in day out, trying to bring in a disruption, because anything then can fall into this gray area. But let's peel this further and find out what really was missing on this. And okay, so there have been willful failures around money through the flow of terrorists, cyber criminals, and child abusers. And this is the statement by Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen. I'm sure in her separate statement she would have clarified and given more details around it. So we'll need to think about that. Now, it's a milestone. Today's historic penalties and monitorship to ensure compliance with US law and regulations mark a milestone for the virtual currency industry. Now, that is definitely a hegemonic uh, leader talking, isn't it? If today's historic penalties and monitorship to ensure compliance with US laws and regulations mark a milestone for the virtual currency industry, it sounds as if it was coordinated for a particular reason to arrive at an exemplary display of power over anybody who tries to challenge the hegemony of the Treasury and other departments which control, well, the fiat currency. Any institution, however, wherever located, that wants to reap the benefits of the US financial system must also play by the rules that keep us all safe from terrorists, foreign adversaries, and crime, or face the consequences. Clearly, that gives it away that you got to play by the rules. And by that, it sounds as if they want people to just toe the line, not disrupt. Now, that's a problem then. Then you'll never be able to disrupt. Disrupt itself, if we actually pull up the definition, let's do that. Disruption would have some element of what? Some element of surprise, some element of unknowing, not knowing what lies ahead, or what are the rules that would be applicable to this particular disruption. Isn't that the case? There's a lot to think on this already, and I'm on the first press release. Disruption, disturbance or problems which interrupt an event, activity, or process. Well, technology, if it is disrupting a set method of using money, it's bound to create some disturbance. That's the inherent meaning itself. So, what do you do then in that case? And in this case, it looks like the judge and the executioner is the same body. Well, disruption is also radical change to an existing industry or market due to technological innovation. Hmm. It looks like it's a very gray area which some disruptor would have to take the risk of dealing with every time they would have, they would attempt to bring up new technology. Anyway, but we'll circle back to willful failures of money laundering and sanctions violations. If there is willful failures, now that's the interesting part about US law. So sometimes just by the by the structure of your case, if it looks like that you're going to go down, or you're staring down, like for an individual, if he's staring down a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year sentence, uh, the person would rather cut a deal and cut their losses, and that's what looks like to have happened in this case, rather than stick to their guns and be like, yeah, you allowed this for all these years. Well, a corporate strategy that puts profits over companies isn't a path to riches, it's a path to federal prosecution. That's Attorney General Lisa Monaco. This has apparently threatened the US financial system and our national security. Binance gives sanctioned customers unfettered access to American capital and financial services. For companies that do not build sanctions compliance into their services face serious criminal penalties. Well, if that's the case, then are are we saying that they don't have tools? The regulators don't have tools enough to monitor real time as to when these breaches occur or when certain companies are violating these. Now, my question goes back to them then in that case. Aren't there regulatory filings that happen every defined period, 15 days, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year? If that be the case, then what was happening in all those filings, one would have to look into. And if those filings were made timely, firstly, then okay, if those filings were not made timely, why was no action taken? If those filings were made timely, what action was taken then? Because then some action should have been taken. Something to think about and find more details around. Because if we're talking about terrorist financing and child abuse and trafficking and all these things, which are serious, serious crimes, $4 billion is not we're looking at as common people, as participants in the society. We should be looking at the actual prosecution and punishment of people who've perpetrated such crimes. And if you're talking about willful negligence, willful failures, willful, well, then it could be quite disgusting if you just settle it all for $4 billion. Then you're putting a price on people and lives that have been affected. Well, anyway, uh, now CFTC uh, chairman Rostin Behnam, Commodity Futures Trading Commission, CFTC, also says that CFTC will strike hard and aggressively against entities that deliberately avoid employing meaningful access controls and customer identities. Well, Binance admitted to prioritizing growth and profits over compliance with US law. Well, too bad, Binance. There you go, pay time. I'm not even sure how many people have lost money on this and how many people and lives have been affected by this whole. So there are a lot of details as to what Binance did, and they're talking about this to be happening since its inception, which is almost 2017, and going on till 2019, and so on, even in COVID era. They actually took the details of they did not even do the proper KYC and due diligence on the customers that they were onboarding, and the certain US customers transactions ended up the transactions ended up having a thread with the Iranian and sanctioned entities. They've never filed a suspicious activity report, which is SAR, with FinCEN, which is amazing that they never had any suspicion on any activity going on. So there was a failure on their part. There it goes. They did not implement comprehensive KYC, know your customer protocols, or even monitor those transactions, and other AML violations on their part. And $1.6 billion is what Binance profited between August 17 and October 22 in the 5 years. Well, it also says that Binance's internal communications showed Binance's compliance employees recognized that Binance did not have protocols to flag or report transactions for money laundering risks. And one of the compliance employees wrote, "We need a banner. Quote, is washing drug money too hard these days? Come to Binance, we got cake for you." This guy should be in marketing, not in compliance. All right, so looking at this, then willfully about $1 billion worth of transactions traded between US users and users ordinarily resident in Iran or other sanctioned countries. Here is a breakup of those $4 billion, $2.5 billion to criminal fine, towards criminal fine, $1.8 billion to financial penalty, and Binance agrees to retain an independent compliance monitor for 3 years and remediate, well, enhance their anti-money laundering and sanctions. This sounds so similar to the case that happened for $1.8 billion or $1.9 billion with 1.6, I don't know, with HSBC back in 2010-11, when the monitor had to there was a deferred prosecution agreement against HSBC, and then later on with Standard Chartered, which is bizarre. Deferred prosecution agreement because what, you don't have enough. Let's just use another word for anatomically overused word. Courage. You don't have the courage to what? Take away the banking license from banks as big as that. So you come up with a creative verbiage, deferred prosecution agreement, and then impose what, 1 point something billion of fine worth on transaction that you're saying come under the purview of crime or come under the bracket of crime. If an individual would have committed such a crime, then the individual looks at imprisonment. But what? These willful negligences from these individuals, and you just cut a deal for $4 billion and there's no imprisonment or a minor imprisonment? Is that what we're looking at? Because in this whole press release, there's been a lot about money, $4 billion, and $1.8 billion, and throwing a lot of numbers around, but there's not a single reference to what is the imprisonment term for this individual, the erstwhile CEO. Well, it seems like he'll be stepping down as part of the agreement, but that's that, and he pays $50 million. That's not part of this press release, which is so strange, because this is self-boastful press release whereby these departments almost sound like as if they came together to prevent and safeguard their hegemony. That's it. That's what it sounds like. That's what it feels like, on a single reading. Nothing more than that. There was lack of cooperation from Binance. They discussed US legal requirements. Total criminality reflects a 20% reduction of the bottom of applicable US sentencing guidelines fine range because it delayed producing relevant evidence. There was some delay, but it did cooperate with the department's investigation and it took steps to remediate its compliance program. So they gave him a 20% discount. Are you kidding yourselves? You are talking about discounts on criminal penalties. As individuals, we all are very well aware of how much discount do we get in case we even jump a red light. This is disgusting. Blatant power of money. This is blatant power of money. Welcome to this is amazing. In your own press release, you're saying that there have been willful blindness, willful negligence, and willful failures and violations of your rules, laws. Willful, not even mistaken. Whereby you say, ignorance of law is no defense. But here, not just that does not even apply. It's willfully done, and you're saying that the guy gets away with the rap. I think U.S. citizens need to wake up and just question this thing, question the way the things are in this. This is an eyewash press release. Frankly speaking, this looks like an eyewash press release whereby it's made to sound so glamorous and grandiose that it's a historic penalty. They have been indicted, and as if they brought down a whole thing. But hey, here's the deal. This is this is a distraction from the real issue. This is somebody who's faced with the hegemony being challenged by a technology and a disruptor, and obviously, law. Now the word coordinated effort sounds something else. It sounds like a cartel effort. It sounds like a cabal. They came together. They wanted to bring down somebody. They brought down somebody. Then they wanted to bring down another person. They brought down the other person. First it's FTX, then it's Binance. Are you saying otherwise that all the other banks who are the distributors of the fiat currency, they are not engaged in these transactions with the sanctioned entities? There's a 100% guarantee right now. You'll not come 3 years later and be like, oh, okay, this particular big bank was engaged in sanctioned violations and KYC violations and AML violations in 2023. And is this really the way you go about what it puts your your prestige is online as a department, whereby if somebody just even looks at this timeline and be like, okay, you're looking at 2017 transactions, what were you doing in 2017? Fine, you missed it for a year. What were you doing in 2018? Fine, you missed it in the second year. What were you doing in 2019? You missed it in the third year. You missed it in the fourth year, fifth year, sixth year, seventh year is when you wake up and you're like, oh, there was a lot of transactions which were, and they are self-congratulating themselves towards the end that these departments and these teams have brought about money laundering asset recovery section, MLARS, so and so person, and then counterintelligence and export control section, CES, and then attorney general, and then his office, his team, and then assistant attorney general. It almost sounds like this now. Hold on, I'm almost at the end of this first press release, and it's almost half an hour, and I don't even know if I'll be able to complete the rest of three. So here's the deal. It almost sounds like, on the behest of national security and US citizens and their safety and their privacy and all that, they actually have done nothing. If that's the real case, then I think the citizens should be questioning as to their accountability. Where were you doing nothing about all those years when Binance, and let's not even doubt the evidence these agencies have collected. Let's go by that Binance did violate willfully. You had no means and measure and control over or oversight over their operations for all those years. Either that, or you willfully allowed it for all those years. Which one is the case then? If you have no measure to put a real-time check on that, then you're complicit, right? Because you let that damage happen. It could be terrorist financing, child abuse, trafficking, and all those that you've named in your press release. Two, I mean, if tools are not the problem, then you are not even aware of what's happening. Well, or you were aware and then you did nothing about it. Which one of the two is the scenario that the public should go with? Because more important thing, bygones be bygones. One would say, all right, what can you do? I don't even know. I mean, somebody would have to look into this probably. But what about today then? Have you put in place some control measures that you would be able to say, despite all the filing, millions of filings that happen every day, every company, entity, person has to abide by all the filings. And despite all that, all the audits, internal audit, external audit, compliance, regulatory filings, and all that, you have all the data and you did nothing. You choose to do nothing. That's the case, isn't that the real deal here? Well, a person with some common sense would look at it. Yeah, that's a basic question. What is your role in all this as regulators? Is it to just cry over spilt milk that this guy's done that and that guy's done this? Were you not aware what this crypto market and business is all about? One, two, if you know it enough, then why did you not do anything about it? Three, what has changed now that you will be able to put into place that these transactions won't actually reach or have a thread with the sanctioned entities now by just putting a monitor? What? That's a personnel from your department. Well, it almost sounds like you have a scheme of providing jobs to your own people. It sounds like that. It sounds like you're just creating jobs for your own sake. Your own departments will keep growing. Well, the money does not trickle down to the common people and their resources. People who lost money to crypto because of your complicity and your inactivity have still lost the money. There's nothing that has been done about that, has there been? Would this $4 billion have a share whereby people who lost their money because of these crooks and these violations, would they get reimbursed? If not, then these remain in the coffers of, let's say, DoJ and Treasury and all that, and whereby the power anyways remains with you. So you in a way you've been able to make $4 billion for what? I think they should go back to the people who invested money in all this nonsense that has happened, because you're supposed to be the caretakers of the people. People, if were capable enough to take care of themselves, well, self-governance, if comes into play, then the governance is not required. Government departments won't be required. So let's just say that self-governance is not a possibility. So you need to govern and care for the people. If that were the case, you failed in the role. Sounds like that from one of your press statements. Self-congratulating, or even on that, self-congratulations. I mean, it's below the office, the dignity of the office, to just be self-congratulatory. Where is the whole grace and class when it comes to that? Isn't let the public commend you, congratulate you for this achievement. You've put out a statement congratulating yourselves and your teams. Well, yes, you've named other people, well, but they are your teams, so you're essentially congratulating yourself. Don't fool the people. It's just weird. And have you put in place now anything that changes anything? That's the biggest question that people should be asking. Have you changed anything now? If not, then why are you allowing Binance to exist? Even now, you should just put an end to it, take away the license to even operate as an entity. If they're criminally, willfully indulged in any activity which did terrorist financing, trafficking, child abuse, and wars or conflicts and arms ammunition, or whatever you think it is, just put an end to it. What are you afraid of? Or let's just say, is it the case that you're putting it back into business so that it will commit crimes again and you can pull them out again? Because that's a good way of circulating people's money, because otherwise people won't give you the money. So if they give the money to such endeavors because people want to make money, so they put money in that, and then that entity would, like Binance, would commit crimes or pleading a deal with you, because that's the only way out. In fact, let me point out for common understanding, there's this sentence which this guy apparently says sometime, and I was reading in one of these releases, that he says it's better to uh, seek forgiveness than permission. So that's the kind of attitude this guy has got, and I'm sure his company is not immune to that sort of attitude, because you attract. Yeah, here it is. Zhao told employees it was better to ask for forgiveness than permission, and you're permitting this guy or his associates to continue that company. Again, that culture would not go anywhere. Well, you need to fire all those, set up a new company. If at all you have the power, you have all the power. Power is not the question now, is it? Question is intent, and intent, your own intent. What is your intent as the departments? Are you I mean, you have a clear opportunity here to set a precedent, but you're not setting a precedent. You're just pretending to set a precedent and make a hue and cry about it, that you've secured $4 billion worth of penalty, which is historic and all this and that. You've done nothing to prevent it. You don't have an intent to prevent anything here. Wow. I don't expect walking into this what matters. And well, this is what the state of affairs is for common people. It's just hopeless. This is eyewash, brainwash, and a blatant level. Do it out in the open so that nobody would have even the slightest idea of questioning it, because yeah, in the face of it, this press release would read as if amazing, the good guys have nabbed the bad guys, but that's not really the case. I don't even care about the bad guys. To hell with them. To hell with their um, you know conning and extortion of money from common people. Well, we'll come back to that later. I'm just disgusting on every level anyway, but this part, which whereby the good guys pretend to be so good, is actually questionable. Well, let's do a further quick read to other parts of this press release. This one is from Attorney General himself, Merrick B. Garland. And let's read with the highlights. Look at this one. I'll go through these three press releases fairly quickly and just figure out what important has been said. So I'm joined by the Treasury Secretary, CFTC Chairman, and all this. He begins with that. So he's quite pleased with the fact that they're all there up on the dais, I believe. Secured felony guilty pleas from the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, Binance, and its CEO, founder CEO, CZ. Criminal enforcement actions, civil regulatory enforcement actions, and collective effort represents the whole government approach and that we are taking to combat corporate crime. Wow. This does not sit well. This does not sound well. One agency should have the power. If this will be the case, I mean, from risk management perspective, it's a simple case of the possibilities that you've created for process gaps, whereby things would fall into those gaps and you will not know what the other arm is doing. And if you are coordinating anyways, why not everything comes under one umbrella itself? But that's simple as that. Anyways, I don't know why you're taking so much pride in having a collective effort, because this sounds on a pure process level, back-end operations, this sounds nonsense. Collective effort will always have flaws, and you'll always keep missing out future, monitoring and control over such corporate crime, so to say, that you're trying to combat. $4.3 billion again, defendant of the matter imposing monitorship. They've imposed a monitor. Monitor will sit with them for 3 years with his team and all that. I'm sure they'll impose the whole charge and cost again to Binance, which means that the profits they'll derive from the business, which actually should be divided to the investors, well, they'll get blown into. Nobody's asking, who cares? Well, oh wow, okay. So they have evidence of the fact that some of these has gone this criminal investigations into malicious cyber activity and terrorism fundraising, including the use of cryptocurrency exchanges to support the groups such as Hamas. All right, they have evidence to that effect. Wow, what have you done about it? Nothing. One more question. Were the funds seized now, or were they now frozen? Those assets were frozen? Because now you know they've gone into terrorist financing and all those purposes. Has anything been done about it or not? Where is that public information? But I don't know how it works. Corporate actions only through individuals who run them. So corporations only act through the individuals who run them. Then why is there no individual liability in this case? If that's the statement you've made in a press release, why is there no individual liability? And to what extent would be the individual liability? Or should we say that an individual should be liable to the full extent of the law and to the same extent as the corporate entity has been put to? Well, I'm not sure if $50 million is all that a CZ is supposed to pay as penalty. That sounds disproportionately peanuts in front of the penalty you've imposed on the entire company, $4 billion. You should take away his wealth for having been willfully participant in this crime. Crime, not a faux pas, not a mistake. It's a crime. He resides outside the US. What else? Substantial customer base from US, and he was asked to, or warned that he must comply with the US law, but apparently he did not do that deliberately. He did try to stop the US businesses on the face of it, but he did not actually. Stolen funds and other criminal proceeds, well, facilitated millions of dollars in transactions between US users and the users in Syria, Russian occupied Ukrainian regions of Crimea, Donetsk, and Luhansk. They have all the information. Clearly, hold on. You know all this. You have all those filings. You have all the data at your disposal. How the hell is it possible that you've had all this data and nothing was controlled in time, when it mattered, before the financial violations reached the point of terrorist financing and abuse and trafficking and all those crimes per se? The moment they would have crossed, you could have stopped it with all this knowledge and all the data and all the trails that you apparently have. Why was it not stopped? Apparently, the employees have been chatting about something, and it is public record now where the employees have been talking about lapses, pretended to comply, but they failed to comply. Hard work of extraordinary public servants at the Department of Justice, because where these accountabilities have been brought about. All right, great, kudos. Nobody's taking away from the clerks, individual staffs, and everything, but you as the manager or the head, what is your risk management process now that you'll be able to stop it timely rather than crying over spilt milk when the damage is already done and trying to save your face by self-congratulating yourself by securing heavy penalties? How does that help the world? How uselessly altruistic that cause is. It's just baffling. In just the past month, the Justice Department has prosecuted CEOs of the two. Oh my God, that's again. All right. They're just happy and high that they've got two of the biggest cryptocurrency CEOs into jail and into trouble. That's it. Let's look at Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. I'm sure this one is going to be amazing. This is the truth spiller, because this is the real hegemony of money, the fiat currency. These are the real ones who've been challenged by this disruption statement giving away. They have been challenged by the technological disruption called crypto. Now let's hear it out. We are today here to announce the Treasury Department historic action, the largest enforcement action in Treasury history, uh, against Binance, consistent and egregious violations of US anti money laundering laws and sanctions laws. Wow, egregious and consistent. Both words. We will keep that in mind, man. But here's the question as to what really happened. If they were so consistent, how is it that your teams were not consistent enough to get them in time? Why is it? Why does it take 6 years, 2017 to 2023, and protecting the US financial system? How is it protected if you've not protected it in time? How is it protected? In fact, you are complicit in leaving it exposed. If you don't have the tools in today's day and age, if you don't have the data, if you don't have people, if you don't have something because of which it takes 7 years, unless and again, it just boils down to a very commonsensical question. Unless and until there is some complicity whereby you let it happen till a point, it becomes enough for your worth, for your time and money. Let it grow to $100 trillion or $1 trillion industry or a whatever $100 billion, whatever number you want to put it, whatever your threshold would be, and then only then would we get interested in overseeing this. And even in that case, there would have been certain filings where you would have seen, all right, it has already crossed that, and let's nab these guys now. Okay, you're not bothered about $10,000 going to terrorist financing. Maybe that's your threshold, but you would have seen 100,000 going on. Could have stopped it then and there. One filing, some filing. I'm so sure there is a regulatory filing which is requisite on every corporate entity periodically, and we've all seen it. There are certain regulatory filings which are supposed to be daily. There are certain weekly, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, biannually, annually. What part of it is missed that it took 6 years? 6 years is 300 weeks. Which filing was missed? Protecting the US financial system. I mean, that statement is just so flawed. There's no consistency in that statement. You're talking about their consistency and egregious violations, and where is the consistency and violation on, on something that should have been done by the agencies in which people pose their faith? I mean, the whole world poses their faith in Treasury, U.S. Treasury, and DoJ. The whole world poses their faith in these institutions, and this is blatant complicity, and there's some accountability that needs to be looked into in this matter. Why it takes 6 years, and always it takes 6 years. Even in the HSBC case, Standard Chartered case, BNP Paribas case, all these European banks that had been fined heavily, I think heavily, I think to the order of upwards of $1.5 to $2 billion each. Why did those transactions come from 5 years, 6 years post facto? That's not what this era is about. We're talking about big data and AI and highfalutin flying to Mars and outer space, and we are talking about not being able to nab financing of terrorist activities and child abuse and trafficking, human trafficking, and otherwise drug trafficking in real time. That's bizarre. And in this case, you're not even talking about something that was cash, because earlier a lot of blame was put on cash. Cash happened, cash, it's difficult to trace cash and this and that. But this one is, well, there is a trace, clear trace. It's a matter of intent. It's a matter of finding that thread, that trail, and just finding the end user, finding the uh, parties, finding the IP addresses, finding the locations. I don't know. But this cannot be the case. And hold on, let's just say this whole assumption is wrong. Then there's another question, which is as to what has changed by this press release or this in this prosecution, that today the risk framework has those tools, those equipment, those personnel trained, given all the access to whatever is required, data points and all that. That today we can do that in real time and nothing would happen. Because after this, if this again happens to be the case, that today you're allowing Binance to continue with a monitor or without, doesn't matter. And if again something like this happens on a third crypto exchange or a company or a corporate entity or a big bank or whatever, then what's the point? You're in fact losing wars because of this, isn't it? You're losing your army personnel, you're losing cadets because of the financing that happened, because of some accountability that should have been at your doorstep. The money should not have even gone in the first place if you were just monitoring it in real time, or at least, if not real time, at least a reasonable amount of time. Thoroughly investigated the key aspects of Binance's activities. Wow, thoroughly investigated. I don't know what that thorough investigation is now by FinCEN, OFAC, and IRS criminal investigation. Withhold information from the law enforcement. That's what they did. What about the annual filings? I have no idea. Suspicious transactions reports were not filed by Binance. Well, too bad. They obviously failed. Clearly, if they had no suspicious activity reports in all these years, that's nonsense. That's clearly people with little knowledge of regulatory filings and compliance working in this industry, in this crypto industry, then they should have hired better people. Clearly, people from compliance, risk, and all those key domains. Settlement agreements subject to Binance to increase scrutiny for 5 years. Again, the same thing. HSBC, if anybody wants to refer to this case, HSBC deferred prosecution agreement, same tune, same song, same process, same methodology. I'm not sure, but it might just actually be the same sentences picked up from the old case, and somebody would have just drafted this press release for them. 5 years, monitor was supposed to sit, his team, all expenses paid by the bank itself, and they were supposed to come up and monitor. I don't know what, because back officers would just, yes, there was a lot of chatter, there was a lot of change, but nothing really nothing. Nobody ever, probably not the whole bank would need the monitor, right? Not the whole Binance workforce would ever, get to, not the whole of it would see the monitor and what they are doing, really. So I'm not too sure what the monitor would be able to do, except some cosmetic changes. US citizens, or are we saying that there needs to be, interesting, another question. Of course, we don't know anything, and you are the people who know everything. So this should be another question posed for more clarity. Then should it be the case then one person who is a regulatory body appointed individual or expert who should always be present as part of the executive team with each corporate entity beyond, let's say, a threshold, and all that can be decided upon? Then shouldn't that be the case? Because then you would have at least a monitor with every company, and then financial crime can be, say, preempted. You would have more control, because that's your complaint apparently. That's your excuse. There was lack of control, and they were not listening and all that. You will have real-time control. If right now that's not happening, you would be able to be closer to the big, big volume transaction, big banks, and prevent from the systemic risk that could tomorrow be threatening the whole financial system that you're so trying to prevent. Something maybe, and it will create employment, by the way. So a personnel from the DoJ or Treasury or whoever the regulatory would want to take the initiative, and they should have a representative who will sit part of the executive and overlook every day-to-day activities. Because apparently the filings are just not enough. Filings are not helping anything in here, right? Because filings just go probably to the paper literature that you collect and archive. Otherwise, filing should have been enough instead of just making a person sit there in the office. Something's not adding up here. Must play by the rules. US government will take action. Well, it's about the rules. It's about hegemony. Clearly, this last statement, if virtual currency exchanges and financial technology firms wish to realize the tremendous benefits of being part of the US financial system and serving US customers, they must play by the rules. And if they do not, the US government will take action. Simple as that. Well, it's in our interest, at least. I have nothing to say against that, but I mean, in fact, the whole world citizenry would be happy with this power, but in a way, we need to also answer the question, how would somebody take that risk of disrupting the technology? And if that technology specifically interferes into the corridors of the old power of fiat currency, how? Treasury is prepared to use all its tools to carry out its crucial mandate of combating illicit finance and protecting the US financial system. All its tools, what are those tools? And why not to carry out its crucial mandate of combating? Why do you need to combat? Why cannot you preempt? That's the problem. The word is combat and protect. It should be preempt and protect. You don't need to combat if you preempt. That's the level that's expected of a big country like US and its regulatory bodies. Combating happens when you don't have the power of data, you don't have the power of reach. US dollar reaches every corner of this world, and how is it that you're combating? It's bizarre. It does not live to the prestige of the offices that these guys hold. It just does not add up. You don't, if truly using the power, you should be preempting these illicit financing and protecting the US, not just the US financial system. We're talking about the whole financial system of the world. Well, that's that. I mean, the whole thing goes on, and then there is Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco delivering her remarks, even stronger statements. It just happens. The people, as you go down in the junior ranks, they try to make more powerful statements because, of course, you have to show your presence felt. I mean, you have to make your presence felt as well. I mean, Attorney General has already said something, then you have to double it down. It is a watershed moment, nothing less. And they're sending an unmistakable message to crypto and DeFi companies, decentralized finance companies. If you serve US customers, you must obey US law. Simple as that, but a lot to read in that statement. Binance and its founder operated as though the rules did not apply to them, as though they were beyond our reach. Beyond our reach. Well, that's a threat. Uh, Crypto assets may be advertised as borderless in nature, but the Department of Justice will enforce US law across and throughout crypto markets. Throughout crypto markets, even in their darkest corners. There you go. You do admit to the fact that US dollar and the reach of the regulators is to the darkest of the corners of this world, this globe. So why not preempt rather than combat illicit financing? Simple. Today's actions show that you break the law, if you break the law, there will be consequences. Binance enabled $1 billion illegal payments and all that. Justice Department is focused on intersection between corporate crime and national security. Corporate crime undermines not only our markets and investors, but also our national security. Very well. Preempt it. If that's the amount of dedication you have, then there needs to be a restructuring and upheaval in your process and approach whereby you need to be able to preempt it. That's what you're missing. But yeah, the loss would be the fact that you might not be able to earn these fines, because if you preempt it, the fines will not reach these amounts, which is in a way good because people will not lose money, which is good because people will be able to have that economic power to spend more. You might not even have inflation and problems like that, which are systemic now. Because of these things that you're allowing, you allowed crypto to prosper to the extent you did, and it's not helping the economy because it's obviously brought its own set of uh, pressures on the economy, on the money, which is the what do you call the mandate of Treasury. But that's where we are at. Criminal divisions, money laundering, asset recovery, and experts. And again, we self-congratulate ourselves, of course. Well done on getting Binance to stop in its tracks, getting FTX exchange to stop in its tracks. Nobody's taking that away from anything from the hard work of the people who've made it happen. Thank God for saving the livelihoods and the lives and earnings and savings of the people who would have otherwise been victims to these blood-sucking maniacs, I guess, tech maniacs, if that's how you want to put it. But but we need to look further. That's how we progress. We need to look further than this already is being shown to be the case. We don't need to, in operations, they say that the best job done is then when you were able to stay under the radar and there is nothing wrong happening. That should be your job rather than the need for you to come out and congratulate. The need for these departments should be to preempt, work in a way so that these things don't even blow up to the level they did or they do. And you cannot be pulling up 8-year-old transactions and saying that, oh, wow, this happened 8 years ago, and a lot of $5 billion worth or $1 billion worth of sanctioned transactions happened. That's nonsense. Iran, if those $1 billion transactions between US customers and Iran has happened, then Iran has already used that money, or whosoever benefited from that money, they've already been used for the purposes they intended to. What would you achieve today by just giving out this release and things? Yes, you're stopping further propagation and perpetration of that, but what about the damage that you already possibly allowed to happen? Well, you have all the resources, these departments have all the resources, these departments have all the means, power, money, everything in $4 billion now more. They have added to their coffers, they can use it and, I don't know, have something that they're missing so that they can simply preempt, not combat, preempt, not combat. Combat is war half lost, at least when you talk in the civil terms and in terms of the things that you're claiming, national security, it's already been damaged. If you're not combating somebody who's messing with your farm fence, if somebody's already broken down your fence, then what's the protection you're talking about? You need to preempt it. You need to shock treat that perpetrator probably, or whatever it means. It's just a metaphor. Don't get me wrong. Anyway, that's the most important. That's the most important and interesting um, development that has happened in the crypto industry, and hopefully there'll be something good that comes out of this, and it does not again, because it is being allowed to continue operations. I just hope things would be any better, but I'm not too sure about it. I'm not too hopeful from this prosecution, the way it has been dealt out, the way they've come out with the press releases, the things they should have said, and given the prestige of their offices and importance of their offices, it looks very different and sounds very different from what they have given in their press releases. It sounds heroic. It sounds very self-boastful rather than diligent and a bit humble and embarrassed that, well, this happened to our financial system, this happened to our people, this happened on our watch, we are embarrassed and we're sorry that this happened. But this is very self-congratulatory and uh, lack of humility, I believe, and lack of introspection, lack of realization that something wrong happened while they were there in power. It's almost, in fact, insulting that a real person of a real worth, a real salt would say that, wow, this happened on my watch. This is really That is something really that they need to look into themselves. Anyway, that's a takeaway. We need to reflect back on this on a later date. And these are the state of affairs today. And this is what matters from this development, this press release, or a set of press releases. The statements are available from, or I source these statements from the website itself of Office of Public Affairs, U.S. Department of Justice, 21st November press releases. All right. I'll look into other developments that are happening and probably try and summarize or talk about them in my video logs going forward. That's a wrap. Thank you. Have a good time and see you again.